Welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. If you could please join us and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kraskowiak.
Here.
Councilmember Butler.
Here.
Councilmember Novak.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Okay. Maybe we can adopt this evening's agenda then.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I would like to request that we move the Charter Commission item for some discussion. Otherwise, I would move the agenda as otherwise amended.
So you want to move item 4 down to?
Top of new business.
Like, okay,
I mean, we can put it before that if you want.
yeah, 13A or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, motion, a second by Butler. Is there any other discussion or questions about the agenda?
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, and that motion carries. First thing on our agenda then is to declare Fair Housing Month. April is Fair Housing Month to commemorate the Fair Housing Act. And before I read any more of that, I'm just going to do the proclamation because most of this is covered in the proclamation for Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States, and whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing opportunities for all, and whereas Coon Rapids is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all, and whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities, and whereas the success of the Fair Housing Act comes from a commitment by all of us to address discrimination and support equal housing opportunities for all. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Cook, Mayor of the City of Coon Rapids, on behalf of the Coon Rapids City Council, hereby proclaim the month of April 2025 to be Fair Housing Month in the City of Coon Rapids, proclaimed this 15th day of April 2025. And, all right, item 2 is to approve the minutes of the April 1st, 2025 meeting.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak,
I move to approve the minutes of the April 1st, 2025 meeting.
Second.
motion by Novak and a second by Butler. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We have now then 6 items on our consent agenda. And the first one is to approve a right of entry agreement with Anoka County for sanitary sewer lining, Project 25-4. This will take place along portions of Mississippi and Hanson Boulevards, and we will need a temporary access to Anoka County Parkland for the placement of a temporary bypass system. So we're looking to accept the attached right of entry agreement with Anoka County for Project 25-4 sanitary sewer lining. The next item on our consent agenda has been moved to 13A. So the next item on our consent agenda is to adopt Resolution 25-58, accepting the Twin Cities Gateway 2025 Member City Grant. The city may use the grant funds for any purpose as specified and in accordance with Minnesota state statutes governing the local option lodging tax and the established criteria identified by the Twin Cities Gateway Board in the attached agreement. And we're receiving this because we participate in a regional convention and visitors bureau known as Twin Cities Gateway, and we receive an annual community member grant. The grant is based on the local option lodging taxes collected by the city and other member cities, and the city of Coon Rapids will be receiving $28,000 from the 2025 Member City Marketing Grant. Similar to last year, staff is proposing that $18,000 of this grant be provided to the Community Strength Foundation for the purposes of supporting the 4th of July celebration and other community events that attract visitors to Coon Rapids. The balance of $10,000 will be used by staff to support various city marketing efforts. So we're looking to A, approve the 2025 Member City Marketing Grant Agreement, B, adopt Resolution 25-58, accepting the 2025 Member City Marketing Grant in the amount of $28,000, and C, direct staff to contribute $18,000 of the grant funds to the Community Strength Foundation for the purpose of supporting the 4th of July celebration, fireworks, and other events that promote bringing visitors to Coon Rapids. Next item on our consent agenda, item 6 on this evening's agenda, And that's to receive the schedule of electronic payments. Minnesota State statute requires a list of transactions made by electronic funds transfer be provided to the city council at the next regular meeting after the transaction. So we're looking to receive the schedule of electronic payments for March 27th, 2025 to April 9th, 2025. The next item on our consent agenda is to approve waiver of fees for portable stage, Anoka Ramsey Community College. Looking to do a waiver of the fees for use of the portable stage on Thursday, September 18th, 2025, for use with their fundraising event, Rhythm of the Rapids. This event raises money to inspire learning and help with student success. The portable stage fee is $520 per day per the approved 2025 fee schedule. The fee covers the cost of stage rental, staff setup and delivery, staff takedown and return, and other related administrative costs. Anoka Ramsey Community College is a partner of the city, particularly during the 4th of July community celebration, and the college allows the city to use its parking lots for public parking during the event, and members of the college work with the organizing committee on lighting needs and other requests as needed. The city also has a facility use agreement for parking lot 4 at the college, which is used as an overflow parking lot during the Coon Rapids Tree Lighting Festival. Staff members feel this cooperation and partnership make it reasonable to waive the stage use fee. So we're looking to waive the stage fee of $520. The city will require that Anoka Ramsey Community College sign an agreement and provide liability insurance, listing the city as an additional insured. Next item on our consent agenda is to adopt Resolution 25-61, establishing a hearing date on imposition of fees, Village Manor Condominium Association Housing Improvement Area. So let's see here. So, council will recall that state law authorizes cities to establish housing improvement areas and finance the costs of improvements to housing within those areas if no other financing source is available. In November, council established a housing improvement area for the 8 units in the Village Manor Condominium Association Housing Improvement Area. The improvements include new roof, soffit, fascia, and gutters, and the costs of the improvements have now been determined, and the next step in the process is to adopt a resolution to collect by assessment the improvement fees from the owners of the units. A hearing is necessary before that resolution can be adopted, and the attached resolution would set May 6, 2025 as the date for that hearing. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 25-61, setting the hearing on the establishment of improvement fees for the Village Manor Condominium Association Housing Improvement Area for Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Coon Rapids City Council chambers. The next and final item on our consent agenda is to adopt Resolution 25-62, amending the general fund budget for copier lease accounting. Beginning in 2022, new accounting standards issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board changed how lease agreements involving tangible assets are accounted for, and the standard requires lease agreements that meet certain requirements to be accounted for as a capital purchase and a leased asset amortized over the life of the agreement. The capital expenditure is offset by a lease proceed revenue in order to add to the governmental fund balance sheet. There is no monetary transaction for the initial capital expenditure and offsetting revenue required. The transaction is simply for financial reporting, and the lease payments are then recorded as a debt service payment, lease principal and interest. And all capital outlay purchases must be specifically identified and funded. So we are looking to adopt resolution number 25-62, amending the 2025 general fund budget, and that will be appropriating $111,412 to capital outlay and other financing source lease proceeds.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Novak and a second by Carlson. Any discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Next, we're looking at item 10, and that is to consider Resolution 25-1 sub 9, awarding a contract for the street reconstruction project 25-1. Mr. Himmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Excuse me. We received 5 bids on this project, the usual customers within this part of the Anoka County. Good competitive bids. They came in under engineers' estimates. We intend to do 3 different neighborhoods, approximately 4 miles on the north side of town mostly. It's our standard FDR mill and overlay, curb replacement, hydrants, valves, some cast iron pipes in the Thousand Oaks neighborhood, pedestrian amenities, city-owned streetlights will be upgraded to LED as part of the project. And so with this, the low bid came in by Northwest Asphalt. They have done this work for us in many years in many locations throughout the city. So staff would be recommending to award a contract to Northwest Asphalt in the amount of $5,722,178.90. And I am more than happy to answer any questions you might have on the project.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
Mr. Hemmer, I apologize. I think I've asked you this question before, but do we have any idea how much more cast iron we have to get replaced?
Councilmember Novak, I do not have that answer, but I can get it for you very easily out of our GIS system.
Okay,
So
hopefully not a whole lot.
I'll bring that up. No, you'd be surprised. Yeah. A lot of that 60s and 70s infrastructure, even into the 80s and early 90s before we transitioned to that cast, or to the ductile iron.
Okay.
I think we've got 2 more years of major replacement.
Mr.
All
Mayor,
right, Councilmember Butler?
I move that City Council recommends we adopt resolution number 25-1 sub 9, awarding a contract to Northwest Asphalt Incorporated for $5,722,178.90.
Second.
Motion by Butler and a second by Geisler. Is there any further discussion on this one?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember, was it Carlson down there?
Yep.
Yes, sir?
Boy, it sure is nice seeing that thing coming in $800,000 below budget. Good Lord. That's a nice bid.
Yeah.
Agreed. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
a question to Mr. Himmer, and this just came up because someone asked me the other day. When we redo these roads, it shows in here that we are going to do improvements, ADA requirements, water main and fire hydrant replacements. Are we actually going to change and update all those fire hydrants, or is it just maintenance as required when we're in there?
Councilmember Griscoviac, primarily the hydrants we will replace are those that we call plugged hydrants, those that extend down into the water table. So those are saturated and they're subject to that groundwater coming and going. So those deteriorate much faster. All of those will be replaced. The remainder, we just make sure they're to our current standards and then we paint them such that they look good.
Okay, that last part is actually the question that I was had, because a lot of people have been going around and flushing hydrants, over the last couple of weeks. And I noticed that there are some hydrants on recently renovated roads that still look pretty rusty, and I'm just wondering why that wasn't done. If it's done at the time of the rehabilitation, that's great, or if not, is there a timeline within a year to get that done? Because it seems like it's like a brand-new road. Why aren't our hydrants painted?
Yeah, Councilmember Skoviak, about 2 years ago, we made that switch. We were doing them in-house. We got our own piece of equipment to do that, but with limited resources, basically one person, it was a lot of work to try to get caught up on those. So what we've added to those contracts starting about 2 years ago is we put that on the contractor and we get a bid price for that.
Perfect, so that'll all be taken care of. That'll be great. That answers that. Thank you.
Did that answer that? It's-
Well, we still have to go back to the ones that we didn't do 2
Right.
years ago,
Right.
but these are all gonna get painted with the,
Oh, the new, right, going
Right.
forward.
Right.
Right, but to the neighborhood you're talking about, I don't think we really found out when those are gonna get done.
that might be a separate email to Public Works, I think.
Provide me the locations
Sure.
and I'll let you know where the list stands and when we think we'll get there.
Perfect, I'll do that.
Okay.
Good point.
Councilmember Geisler?
Just one clarifying point too, the 15% contingency here is as needed. That's part of this authorization, but not necessarily to be spent, only as needed.
That's correct, Councilmember Geisler. We have separate contracts for material testing, separate contracts for batch plant testing. That's just a general number, rule of thumb we use. It's actual costs once those contracts are resolved and final payments go out.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I'll remind council to adopt resolution 25-1 sub 9, awarding a contract to Northwest Asphalt Incorporated for $5,722,178.90. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 11 is to consider resolution 25-3 sub 9, awarding a contract for miscellaneous trail construction project 25-3. Mr. Himmer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a continuation of our annual trail maintenance program. There are roughly 6 or 7 different segments throughout the city. We also did include an alternate in here. Bunker Hills has some cart paths that they wanted to do. We packaged the two together, so there's 2 funding sources on this one. The base bid came in really well, as did the alternate. You'll see that in all of these bids, and quite frankly, I'll give the credit to engineering staff and others who we get these things out early in the process, and we try to be the first to bid, so we're not relying on contractors who potentially already have a full program, or those that maybe are not the best at the work that they do. So I give that team a great amount of respect and appreciation, and we got more bids, another 8 bidders on this. Aslickson's did the project for us last year and a couple of years ago. So with that, I am more than happy to make a recommendation to award this contract to Aslickson for the base bid plus the alternate in the amount of $191,878.66.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Himmer?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
I move that we adopt Resolution 25-3 Sub 9, awarding a contract to Alexander's Services Incorporated for $191,878.66 for project 25-3 miscellaneous city trail reconstruction project.
Second.
Motion by Novak, second by Butler. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. And now that we have permission to use the easement for doing this, we should probably consider approving the project for sanitary sewer lining project 25-4. Mr. Himmer?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. We had all relevant bidders on this project. This one blew us away. We asked you for more money to increase this just to get us to where we thought we were going to need to be. These prices are less than what we had last year. So we had every single bidder here. There aren't a lot of projects out there. Met Council is kind of in a in-between year for them. There's not a lot of communities doing this, so we had every bidder bidding on this project. In hindsight, I would have added 5 more alternates to this, because quite frankly, we could double what we would like to do under this program. But great competition, really good bids. Can't complain about these at all. And this is going to get us through Mississippi Boulevard and just up that channel heading up towards Riverview Park, get us out of the roadways for that next segment heading north. And so I would recommend in situ form receive this bid in the amount of $1,205,536.43.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Himmer on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Novak?
I was just going to move to adopt resolution number 25-4 Sub 9, awarding the contract to In Situ Form Technologies USA LLC in the amount of $1,205,536.43 for the sewer lining project.
Second.
Motion by Novak and a second by Geisler. Is there discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 13 is to consider construction contract for 2025 street sweeping, project 25-15. And and that's because we're not Spring Lake Park and we don't have anybody buying us a sweeper. Is that what the deal is? $318,000.
Right.
Nice gift. Mr. Himmer.
Mr. Mayor, I may have good news for you on a different subject, but we'll stick to this memo here. This is the last of the bids we're considering tonight. This is our annual street sweeping program. This supplements what staff does. We're still out there in our 2 sweepers, running pretty much daily with our crews. This is just to get the extra work done in the spring, and then they come back in the fall. We typically have 2 bidders. They've done the work kind of alternating back and forth over the past 10 years. We went back out to those bidders this year, but only one responded. They're including a rate that's exactly the same as it was last year on an hourly basis. So with that being said, we're more than comfortable to move forward with this project. Again, it's supplemental work for us. We have adequate funding to do it, and I'm happy to recommend Allied Blacktop receiving the annual street sweeping in the amount of $108,062.50.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Himmer on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Geisler?
Mr. Hammer, is this a do not exceed, or is this just an estimate based on hours and we'll pay on actuals if they have increased hours, or how does this work on the hourly rates?
Councilmember Geisler, this is an estimated amount of hours based upon history of what we've swept. We added a specific dollar amount, but it is an hourly rate, so we could do less than this, we could do a little bit more than this. It's really just based upon what our needs are.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
make a motion to approve the construction contract with Allied Blacktop Company for the 2025 street sweeping and authorize staff to execute the agreement.
Second.
Motion by Carlson and a second by Armstrong. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
looks like with some of these great bids, we're ahead of the game if it's over a few hours.
Different funding sources, but thank you very much.
Oh, shoot.
All right, any other discussion? Sorry, I was taking a trip down, a mental trip down memory lane. Back when I was a kid, Don Card was always the guy that was driving the street sweeper along Crooked Lake Boulevard by our house. So, and he's still retired. I think he's like your longest retired public works guy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we're under new business now, and we moved item, what number was it, 4?
4.
4.
We moved item 4 up to 13A to approve recommendation for reappointment of Charter Commission members and recommendations for new appointments to the Charter Commissions. State statutes require that a minimum of 7 and no more than 15 persons serve on the Charter Commission. Currently, the Charter Commission has 7 members, and the terms of 2 Charter Member Commission members, Alden Hofstad and Glenda Meixel, are expiring. Mr. Hofstad and Ms. Meixel are eligible and willing to serve another 4-year term effective April 2025 and expiring March 29. In addition, the term of Charter Commission member Steve Wells is set to expire. Mr. Wells is eligible and willing to serve another 4-year term effective May of 2025 and expiring in April of 2029. And then given that we're at the minimum number of members, City Council and City staff believe adding new members would be beneficial. Based on direction received from the council, City staff asks the council to consider recommending 2 residents, Kenneth Uko and Susan Erickson, to the Chief Judge to serve as members of the Coon Rapids Charter Commission. Both have expressed an interest in being on the Charter Commission and have submitted their applications, which are attached for our review. And if the council follows the recommendations on the agenda, then the commission will have 9 members, and assuming they're approved by the judge. The council's recommendation for reappointments and appointments are forwarded to the Honorable Elizabeth H. Strand, Chief Judge for the 10th Judicial District, who makes the final appointments. All right. Councilmember Geisler, you wanted this removed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I have just a couple points that I would like to make about this in general, but also commissions in general. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who applied to commissions across the entire slate. This is our last round of appointments for this year, and so I know that there are folks who didn't get on or didn't get to do things. I encourage them to continue to apply. It took me 3 times to get on planning, so please keep going at it. Please help serve your community if you can and if you're able. So I just wanted a general thank you on that one. But secondly, a little more specific to this item, we had a lot of discussion at our work session before we came up to this. And, one of the things that came out of this that was a little confusing to me that I wanted to bring up to staff was, these terms are expiring in weird months compared to all of our other commissions where they typically end on a December, or all terms are ending, or they're staggered by a year. We've got some ending in March, some ending in April. These ones would then, those new appointments would theoretically end in April. Looking at the state statute, it looks like they probably, they're supposed to be fixed terms, and if someone leaves, then they're supposed to be reappointed into a partial term. Seems like we got out of sync there. I do think, I would like to ask staff to look into that to figure out how should we have those structured properly. And then one of the other topics that came up within our discussion was, kind of a cooling off consideration period for elected officials. And I think that's something also that I'd like staff to explore. I know the state statute for the Charter Commission specifically prohibits our ability to limit who can be on the commission. But other commissions, I think it's something that was brought up by other council members, and I think it's worth consideration and a little broader discussion of who, do we want former elected folks? Do we want actively elected folks? Do we want city employees? Do we want, other things like that? I think it warrants a discussion on our commissions. I do think all of our commission members are there to serve really well and serve the community. But I do think that is something that we should consider and look at, and I wanted to just bring forward as a discussion point. But with all of that said, and as this stands today, I do want to make a motion to approve the recommendation to Chief Judge for the 10th Judicial District that Alan Hofstad and Glenda Mikes will be reappointed to serve another 4-year term effective April 2025, with said term to expire in March 2029. Also to recommend to the Chief Judge that Steve Wells be reappointed to serve another 4-year term effective May 25, with a said term to expire in May 29. And to also recommend to the Chief Judge that Kenneth Uko and Susan Erickson be appointed to serve a 4-year term effective May 25, with terms to expire in May 29.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Butler?
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to congratulate everyone who's going to get reappointed or appointed for the first time. But just to build off of one of Councilmember Geisler's points, I also was sort of contemplating, should we institute a formal rule around a cooling off period? And I did talk to Mr. Stemwell a little yesterday about maybe, if you were an elected official of any kind, maybe you should have a cooling off period of a year or two before you're able to join commissions again. It's not that we don't love the enthusiasm, it's just it's a way to make sure that we have a little distance from one form of public service to another.
Councilmember Novak?
Just for the folks at home who may be wondering about this, City Council does not have the authority to directly appoint people to the Charter Commission. It has to go to the Chief Judge for approval. So that's why we're doing it this way.
Right, and we have a motion and a second on the recommendation to the judge. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 14 is to consider a purchase agreement on 31XX 111th Avenue Northwest and adopt Resolution 25-59, amending the 2025 revolving construction fund budget. And this is item 14 on our agenda this evening. Let me get that one called up here. Mr. Stemwell, you going to hit the highlights on this one?
Sure, I will. Mayor and council, we have a unique opportunity to purchase a piece of property that's owned by Minnesota State University Systems, in particular Anoka Ramsey Community College. The property sits right in between the current Fire Station 3 property and the Coon Rapids Ice Center property. And for many years, the college and the city have had some discussions generally about the potential for the city to purchase this property. And for a number of reasons, Anoka Ramsey's decided to move forward with selling the property. Given that it's located in between two city properties in a pretty strategic area, I brought this forward to council several months ago to see if there was interest in purchasing it. And at that time, there was consensus to move forward, at least to this point. Really, the purpose of purchasing the policy would be to anticipate future expansion and growth at the ice center. In years past, we've had conversations around a recreation center or expanding Boulevard Plaza, other activities around the 4th of July. And so really, it makes sense for the city to control it for that purpose, but it would also facilitate an extension of Flora Street to 111th someday into the future, especially when that property were to develop more for better ingress and egress and parking at that facility. So it makes a lot of sense for us to purchase it. Now, it does come at a pretty high price, and I can explain that a little bit. The process for Minnesota State to unload property is a statutory one. At first, they have to offer it to local jurisdictions, so the county and the city in particular, to see if they have interest in purchasing it. And the method by which they can sell it then is to have the property appraised at the current zoning, and then if the buyer is willing to purchase it at that price, it moves forward, and if not, then they can have other methods for selling the property. So this particular piece of property has been zoned high-density residential for quite some time. Therefore, the purchase price reflects that zoning is probably the most expensive type of property to purchase is high-density residential, given that, in theory, that value could be so much higher given the density. So that purchase price reflects at $1.1 million. We did have our city assessor take a look at the methods of the appraisal, and he agreed that it was a reasonable method and arrived at a $1.1 million purchase price. Made sense to him as well, given the zoning and the other context for the piece of property. So in order to move forward with the purchase of this property, there is a purchase agreement attached that would call for a closing by the end of July. If council approves this, I'll reach out to Minnesota State tomorrow, and we'll start to set up a timeline for the closing of the property. Council would also need to amend the revolving construction fund. This is a fund that has adequate fund balance for the purchase of this property. And then in the future, as we sell off some other remnant pieces of city property, we do expect to reimburse the revolving construction fund when possible for this particular purchase. With that, I'll stand for any questions if council has any.
Mr. Stemwedel, will we be taking advantage of the period for inspections to do soil borings? It appears to be the same, same level what am I looking for, in the contours as like the fire station.
Sure.
So that would have all had soil borings, and that would have been fine. But I guess I'm just wondering if that would be some due diligence
Yep.
we would consider.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we can certainly do that. We have a period for due diligence here over the next couple of months, and that is something we can investigate. We've got a company that we use for that purpose frequently, and I'm sure we could get that done fairly quickly.
I was just thinking about the one on the other side of 10 that company bought for $1 million and then couldn't build it.
Right, sure.
Because they didn't do that.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson.
Mr. Stemwell, we're also in the process of selling some property, right? Hopefully to try to replenish the fund a little bit with that.
Yes.
So, 1.1 million is a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know we have some properties we're trying to sell, and hopefully we can try to make up a chunk of that.
Councilmember Carlson, yes, we do have several properties that staff has had a conversation with the city council about over the last year or so. In particular, the old Fire Station 3 property is something yet this year we could probably move forward on. We created a new property south of new Fire Station 3 that in the next year or two, depending on, what the interest level is, would be ripe for selling as well. We have a property at the new water tower site that will someday generate a lot of interest, I think, there. So we have a few properties like that. Those are the three biggest ones right now that I can think of that over the next 2 or 3 years we think we'll be able to sell and reimburse ourselves with.
I think it's a great investment. I mean, you're right, it connects to two city properties, and boy, I wish we had enough money to do something with that, ice arena right now, but we don't. But if we look down the future, it's great future thinking. If anything, too, maybe we can do something more with the plaza and build that out a little bit. If it isn't an extension of the ice arena, maybe something nice with the plaza to build that. I think it's a great investment.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Butler?
First, I just wanted to thank city staff for working on this. I think this is a phenomenal investment for the long term of the city. And then the only other thing I wanted to say is I did share Councilmember Carlson's concern about the price tag, that was, an unfortunate part of doing business, but I was reassured because Mr. Stemwedel told me there'll still be a fund balance of about $5 million in our revolving construction fund near the end of the year, assuming everything goes according to plan.
Correct.
All right,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I got a few questions and maybe some open discussion for the council, but first of all, obviously, it's a desirable piece of property for community development. I mean, we've long thought about expanding the community center, the ice center, and things like that, so this piece of property would certainly be used for a community use. And I'm just wondering, how can I say this? Do we have to close on this? Do we have to sign a purchase agreement now, or do we have time to still maybe talk to Minskew, talk to the college? We've been a great partner with them. They've been a great partner with us. I'm just wondering if it is known that this is going to be a community asset, it's exclusively for that use and not a commercial or other type of investment. I mean, would Minskew be willing to negotiate a little bit better price on that? That's my first question. I have a couple of other thoughts too.
Councilmember Griscoviac, I mean, the statutory process is laid out pretty simply, and it's exactly the process we're following. What could, if we chose to turn down the property, I mean, it would be opened up to them to sell any way they'd like, essentially, and so we would be left potentially with whoever purchases the property and the way they would like to develop it. They didn't have a specific urgency to sell it, other than it's a piece of property that they have no need for or future use for. It's segmented off of their property. Their model has changed quite a bit. And really, I understand it that although they're not urgently looking to sell it, they do plan to use the proceeds of the sale for some capital improvements at the school site. So they are thinking in the next couple of years that these dollars would be used for some project on the campus.
All right. And, the value, the $1.1 million value is certainly tied to the zoning as high density. If there was a 100-unit, 200, 500-unit apartment building built there. But if we buy it, we are not going to build a apartment building. We could certainly rezone it to, commercial without that high density. And if we did that, would that affect the value? Now, I don't think that would actually even be unethical in any way, because we're following state statute. I don't know. Have we thought about that?
Mayor and council, I mean, we have not had a long discussion about changing the zoning on the property. I mean, I think that, especially at this juncture, really the interest level in council should be either to purchase it as stated or not.
Well, that's,
What the long-term zoning of the property would be if we didn't own it, would have to go through, a separate process, whether that's through the comprehensive plan or otherwise. I mean, in this particular location, high-density residential made a lot of sense, given the adjacent uses in that area. There really isn't any commercial that's that close by until you get to the boulevard. So it could be zoned as something else, yes. I think at this point, though, it's really a matter of if council wants to purchase the property as it's being presented tonight, or if it's too much of a price tag, then really the answer to the college is, we decided not to, and you're free to pursue other options.
well, again, it's a desirable piece of property. I think it makes sense for the city to own it, because then we have all that flexibility for community use. But that was to my first point. Do we have to move forward with this? We did talk about this in work session quite a bit, and I actually didn't think it was going to come before council quite this quick before we had maybe some of these other questions answered. The other thing is, we've always wanted, they've got some pretty nice riverfront acreage there too. It'd be nice if we could bundle this to have a community slice of that riverfront. And I don't know if any of that has been tried to negotiate that into this, because then we would have, again, a community asset with river access for our community members adjacent to our community center. Any thought on that? Anybody?
My thought on that was guess I looked at this as a nice first step.
Okay.
We'll make it a nice, smooth process, buying this piece of property, and then we can have the conversation about the riverfront. That's how I see it. And I think the ship has sailed on the zoning. I don't think there's anything we can do to impact the value right now that would be reasonable and wouldn't upset future negotiations.
Mr. Mayor,
Keeps first. All right. Hang on just a second. Is it,
No, I think
we
that makes
open
sense.
now, or-
I'm with you on all this, and that was kind of my first question, is the timing. We don't want to let this pass up. We let other pieces of property on Coon Rapids Boulevard pass us up, and, now we're kind of, we look back and say, boy, we had an opportunity and we didn't take it. We need to take this opportunity. The price tag is high. We've got the money in the revolving fund. Of course, you guys know me well enough. I'm always looking for the best deal for the city and our taxpayers, that's all. I'm good.
all right. No, so knowing that Councilmember Griscoviac is good, do you still have follow-up over here?
I'm good.
I'm good. He asked for input.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase agreement for the property at 31XX 111th Avenue Northwest and authorize staff to execute any documents as necessary to close on the property and to adopt Resolution 25-59, amending the 2025 revolving construction fund budget.
Second.
There's a motion by Geisler and a second by Butler. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Carlson?
I didn't jump in soon enough for discussion. I
Okay.
just want to Councilmember Griscoviac's point, I totally understand where you're coming from on the bundling, but I just hate to lose this property while we're in the process of trying to negotiate anything else.
Yep. I think we got the process now. Look how easy that was. Now let's carve this off down here. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Armstrong?
I just want to give kudos to Councilman Griscoviac. I appreciate the creativity.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it coming.
Little late, maybe. Thank you.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries.
Unanimous.
Item 15 is to consider a MnDOT agreement for design services for the Trunk Highway 610 and East River Road Full Access Interchange Project, number 15-14. There we go. Mr. Himmer?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The city received $1 million in the 2023 legislative session from the state. This is the mechanism by which to receive those dollars. So it goes into the local road program as administered by MnDOT. So we have to execute said agreement so the dollars can be distributed to the city. This will offset most of the costs with the Anoka County funding that has been depleted. This will get us almost to the finish line with our construction activity. The city and county will be splitting those extras 50-50, and we'll have shovel-ready plans by the end of the year. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right,
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
I move we approve the MnDOT Local Road Improvement Program grant agreements and associated resolution for the $1 million state grant.
Second.
Motion by Novak, second by Armstrong. Is there further discussion on this, or any discussion?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
thank goodness this came through. That's all I have to say.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Carlson?
been a lot of discussion about this right over several years, I think. And,
Yep.
and boy, yeah, the closer we get to that full exchange, the better. My 9-year-old grandson asked me why it only goes one way.
Well, he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
I wonder where he gets it from.
His father, somehow it skipped a generation. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 16 is to consider a resolution 25-10 sub 8, accepting plans and specs for Fire Station Number 2, driveway and parking lot replacement, and authorize solicitation of bids. Mr. Hammer?
Yes, Mayor, Council, this infrastructure was put in about 35 years ago. It's seen the end of its useful life. We've tried to patch it, putting asphalt on concrete or trying to do segments of this. We finally bit the bullet, I think, and provided funding within this year's budget to move forward with this project. Not only will we look at the parking lot as a whole within that, but we'll look at kind of the ADA stuff out near the roadway on 121st. There's a little bit of concrete work there that needs to get addressed as well. So we packaged it all together. We're ready to go out for bid on it, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Hammer on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Butler?
I move that the council adopt resolution number 25-10 sub 8, approving plans and specifications and ordering an advertisement for bids for the replacement of the existing concrete driveway and parking lot surfaces at Fire Station number 2.
Second.
Motion by Butler and a second by Geisler. Is there discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I'll just say this. I'm really familiar with this. This is way overdue. I mean, we should have replaced this maybe 10 or 15 years ago. We put a lot of upgrades into that fire station over those years, a lot of them. And, yeah, this is definitely due. Anyone drives by there, they'll know exactly what we're talking about for this piece of, critical infrastructure.
And the only thing we know for sure is the contractor that did Station 3 won't be doing Station 2, correct? Okay.
Throw
We
that
will
bid out ahead of
evaluate all
time.
contractors once bids are received.
All right, is there any further discussion on this? We have a motion and a second. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And I can only assume that somebody is here for open mic, I'll bet. Maybe? We're up to the open mic portion of the meeting. And open mic provides an opportunity for the public to address the city council on subjects that are not part of the regular meeting agenda. The public is invited to express any concerns they may have which are relevant to the affairs, policies, or practices of the city of Coon Rapids. Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. Please approach the podium and state your name and address before addressing the council. And all remarks will be made from the podium and addressed to the council as a whole. Open mic is not a time for problem solving or reacting to the comments made, but for hearing the speaker for informational purposes only. Questions from council will be for clarification only, and if necessary, a staff report will be prepared for the next regular council meeting with a copy forwarded to the speaker. And that does not take out of your 3 minutes, so we,
Is it okay if I,
could you step up to the mic?
yes.
So-
Is it okay if I provide you my written address rather than stating it out loud?
City clerk, right there. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
thank
fine.
you. My name is Amy. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, Council and Mayor Cook. And also, apparently, this is my favorite time of year to come. I don't come to these very often, but I was here for the city street sweeping consideration last year, so apparently it's my favorite topic, but not why I'm here tonight. I did want to address the situation about the cats, and I understand that the policy has changed. I disagree that the cats were being relocated. I don't think it was transparent. It was a bad policy. It put CSOs and other officers in a bad position that I think probably unfairly took a little bit of the heat for that. And it possibly made it really hard and difficult for people to find their cats when that happened. I agree overall that leaving cats be, for the most part, is probably a better policy. It's more likely to make their way home or be found by the owner. I am worried that there's no provisions in place for injured cats that maybe offer a humane solution. I understand part of the complication was there was no veterinary person available that night. I do wonder what the city does when there's an injured dog overnight or when there's no vet available at the Humane Society at that time. I know the council has also passed the Humane Pet Store Ordinance, which I appreciate, and I know everybody, most of you were here at the board at the time, were really passionate. I understand that that was a little bit easier because it was more proactive. We didn't have to try to come up with solutions. But I do know that there's a passion and a care from people about animals, including on this board. So I do think it's worth considering, even though there's probably not an easy solution, not even a perfect solution, to see if there's maybe some considerations or solutions that we might be able to come up with, especially in the case of an injured cat. And that's what I would like to share tonight. Thank you.
Wow, a minute to spare. Nice job, Amy. Anybody else here to address council for open mic this evening?
I'm Eric Matson. Same address as Amy. I just briefly wanted to ask why we don't have the state flag flying anywhere on the city. I didn't see it coming in and not in here, and that's what I would like to know.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Even more time left. All right, anybody else to address council for the, what are we doing? Open mic portion? No? All right, everybody else is good? All right, we'll close the open mic portion. I don't have any reports on previous open mics, and we are up to other business. I think we had our last winter concert series concert last Thursday. Seemed to be well attended. Cake was excellent, just saying. And I think our summer concert series will be kicking off in what, July, right? June? June, that's right. Okay, what else, what do we have? Other business?
Mayor and council, I'll just put one more plug in. I think I did this a few weeks ago. Next week, we have our local Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting. So folks who own property in Coon Rapids got a property notice about a month ago that showed your 2026 value for, or 2025 value for purposes of paying 2026 taxes. And next week is an opportunity that if people disagree with that assessment, that they can come in here and contest that before the local board, which is made up of members of the city council. But the best thing to do, if you have questions, is call our city assessor's office. They'll explain the process, how they arrived at the value. And if there's things that they made some assumptions about that aren't accurate, they'll come out, check out your property, and they can make adjustments. So it's a lot easier to deal with it if you call ahead and are proactive than on the night of, sort of delays the process a little bit. So if you've got that and you have questions or concerns, please do call. That's it.
Absolutely critical. Call our assessing department if you're questioning your values. Don't wait for that night.
That's right.
You can.
You can.
But please don't. All right, Councilmember Geisler?
One other thing I'll just pull out, it was sent out, it's on the website, but Earth Month Park Cleanup with the Sustainability Commission is going on this Saturday at 10 o'clock at Lions Coon Creek Park. You can RSVP online. There's also a what to expect handout there, so head on out to the city website, and it's one of the big tiles out there, so give a look, and if you're up for it, help clean our community a little bit.
I'll be there.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Butler?
Mr. Semwell, I got a question for you that I got from a few constituents. Do we have any updates on, the timing for spongy moth treatment? I know there were originally talks next month, and then the city thought it might be delayed for a little later. Do we have any further updates on that?
Sure, Councilmember Butler and members of the council. So we actually had a meeting today with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. About a week ago, the MDA sent out a notice saying that they were canceling the application of the treatment for the spongy moth due to delays in federal funding. All the funding they have for spongy moth treatment comes through the federal level, and they're waiting, and decided they couldn't wait any longer. They needed to cancel it. There was a question that was asked by the mayor about whether or not the city could look into paying for that application instead, or what options there might be. So we discussed some of those today. We don't have a definitive answer, although I will say it's looking like it's going to be very difficult for the city even to contract with the applicator. One of the reasons they called it quits when they did is there's so much lead time to get all of the right flight pattern information and the contracts in order and those sorts of things. So that's one of the reasons why the state backed off when they did, is just for that. So we're kind of giving it about 24 more hours. We had a few questions we asked of them today, and they're going to get us some responses hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll have to make a decision, and I can communicate out to council if I think it's even remotely feasible to pursue any further the idea that the city might be able to contract with an applicator to do that. Absent that, the MDA has got a plan for communication that would include a quarantine of removal of trees and certain, firewood and things like that from the area. What they'd ask residents in that area to do in terms of like inspection of their yard furniture. If they were to sell yard furniture and move it, well, it's fine, but could you, look at it, make sure there's no nests or no caterpillars crawling around and that sort of thing. That would be about a year-long process. It wouldn't affect yard waste, wouldn't affect our EAB, tree removal and things of that nature, but it would be something that the state would ask that area to do for 1 year until they could come back and do the treatment next year. Meanwhile, they would monitor that area of Coon Rapids very closely, set up traps, and really configure how big they think that the numbers are. Though they believe it's a very small outbreak of spongy moth and aren't too concerned about it moving around. Apparently, it's a very slow-moving insect, primarily moves through transport of firewood and things like that. So they feel like through education and really focusing on it that way and doing their monitoring, that they'll be just fine. They can come back next year and do the wider treatment if that's where we end up.
Thank you for that, I appreciate it.
And I should mention, if that's the direction that we need to go, they're prepared to start communicating that almost immediately.
Councilmember Geisler?
Mr. Semmel, I mean, the next meeting we would have is 3 weeks out. If something was possible, though, and it needed to be done quickly, is there any pre-authorization we could do for you to enable to act on it if it's possible?
Councilmember Geisler, I don't think so, because ultimately the contract amount would be less than what I could sign for individually. And because we already have funds set aside for tree treatment and removal and that sort of thing, this would fit right in there with that. So we did have a little bit of that conversation, but we think it's well within my authority to approve that agreement if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right. Other business to come before council this evening?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Carlson, second by Butler to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.